So back in about 2015, 2016, I ended up trying a virtual reality arcade, and I went in with a pretty heavy level of skepticism. I wasn't sure how this device was going to work, how it was going to feel, how it was going to function. And after they give you the rundown, they strap me up in what felt like a full suit device. You have like a high-end gaming laptop strapped to your back, then you put the headset on. I was pretty skeptical, but then once I actually tried this device, I was completely blown away by how well it worked, how well it played, and just how fun it was overall. Then I was kind of leaving that excited about virtual reality, and I started looking into what it would take to get my own setup like that. And for a home consumer budget, we're talking thousands at that time to get basically a similar or the same setup that they were using at that point. And so I started to kind of abandon the idea until a couple years later, the Quest was making its debut and it came out. And I heard some really good things about this device, but I still had a heavy level of skepticism because I was thinking to myself, $500 for this headset compared to these $1,000 units that they're using at this virtual reality arcade, it's probably going to have a lot of compromises. So fast forward, I skip the Oculus and I go into the Oculus Quest 2 and I give it a try. Well, it's Oculus Quest 2 at that time, now it's the Meta Quest. And then I give it a try. I'm completely blown away by this device. And at that point I decided I absolutely have to pick one of these up. It was also during COVID, so I had a lot of free time at that point. So I had to pick one of these up. And after using it, I was blown away by how close it was to that first experience I had. And the purpose of this video is, I know the Quest 3 is out. I myself have not gotten the Quest 3. But the purpose of this video is I'm seeing that there's a lot of holiday deals going on for the Quest 2. A lot of great packages going on for the Quest 2. And I want to go over whether it's worth picking this up during the holiday season or whether it's better to hold off and either save up and buy the Quest 3 or skip the Quest devices entirely. So let's take a look. Perfect. So to start, in the box, and I bought this back when it was still called the Oculus Quest, it's now the Meta Quest, but in the box you get basically both controllers, the headset, and a charger. The headset itself, one of the first things I recommend doing, pulling out of the box, is making sure you adjust it properly and make sure you adjust it tightly so it fits snugly against your eyes. You actually also have a eye adjustment too on this device. There's 3 different predefined settings, and I found it was important to get those perfect or else you get a lot of ghosting effects when you're looking through the headset. And as far as setup goes, it's pretty straightforward. I actually thought the hardest part was linking my Facebook account, which is something you have to do with this device. But what I really thought was awesome is you're able to design a predefined boundary space when you're using this indoors. So in other words, you can walk around, you can set the level of where the floor is, and basically set your boundary completely so you can't bump into things or fall into things while you're using this device. Now, as far as the controllers go, I've had this for a number of years at this point, and the joysticks function very, very well. They feel good to the touch. I like the way the triggers feel as well. Overall, I think they were very well designed for what you do typically with most of the games on this device. Now, when it comes to the games, I'm typically a guy who likes story-style shooting games when it comes to a device like this, and so The Walking Dead was a great game that I played, and I was also huge into Resident Evil 4. One thing you will notice, however, is visually, this is using, as I understand, just an overpowered Android processor for the games. And a lot of the games on the Meta Quest 2, I would argue they're on par visually with maybe like the Xbox era of games, the original Xbox era of games, which isn't a terrible thing, but you'll notice some games look very washed out, look very visually not the best. But as it stands, some of the developers have done a better job of maximizing the hardware, and I felt like games like Resident Evil 4, for example, looked fantastic for what they were able to accomplish on the Meta Quest. And the same even goes for Super Hot VR, which is probably one of the best games I've played in virtual reality so far. And I think they did a fantastic job of maximizing the visuals of that game's engine, but it's also a minimalist type looking game, so I think it's a perfect fit for this device. The best thing though about playing these games is each of your controllers are one-to-one tracked. At least that's how they feel. So there's a very, very natural feel when you're playing these games, when you're using weapons, when you're climbing in some games, moving in these games, that this device captures very well. The other great thing about it as well is mixed with the headset, it's able to figure out where it is spatially in a room. So a game like Super Hot VR, for example, you can duck and your whole entire body moves like you're in real life. And one of the things about that game that I thought was so impressive was you felt so fully immersed while you're playing this game. Like I haven't played many virtual reality games like it, where I felt like I truly was in another world, and when I took that headset off, I was almost thrown off that I wasn't in that world, if that makes sense. And that's, to me, what really makes the Meta Quest 2 so awesome. Is it does come down to how well it tracks, and it does a phenomenal job of that. The downside, however, is I know that there's a huge player base on the Quest devices who like a lot of these Beat Saber type games, and not a knock at you guys, just unfortunately that's not my type of game. I would love to see more story-based shooters like Resident Evil 4, Walking Dead, or Super Hot VR, because I found that in a lot of ways I didn't really care for a lot of the one-off games that I've tried. Now, there are some games that I've played that are kind of quick jump in, jump out style games, but for me, the best experiences I've had so far are in these first-person shooter, adventure-style games for the Quest. And so to me, I would love to see what happens in the future with some of these games as more of those become available and made for this device. Now, kind of back to the visuals, right? One of the downsides to the Quest 2 that you're going to notice is that the visuals, while they're not the greatest, they're not going to be getting much better. What I mean is I'm not seeing many developer updates happen anymore for the Quest 2 games that are currently out. It seems like a lot of them are kind of one and done and that's it. And a lot of the focus now is going to the Quest 3 and maximizing its hardware for these games. So if you're someone who wants the best experience on a self-contained headset, because there's not many headsets that you can play without plugging into a device like a PlayStation or a computer, if you want the best of that, you're going to have to basically go on to the Quest 3, which I think as it stands right now in Canada is around $700 to purchase. Whereas with the Quest 2, one of the great things about this device is that you can currently get it for as low as $300 in Canada, and I believe I'm looking right now, there's a bundle that you can get with 128 gigabytes of space for $350. So if you want to get into virtual reality and still have access to the same libraries and the same great games that you're going to get across all the Quest devices, the Quest 2 is a great starter headset at this point. And the reason I say starter is because the Quest 3 has now taken its place in offering far more than the Quest 2 currently can. So I would heavily recommend, if you're looking at getting a virtual reality device for yourself or for someone you know, to get the Quest 2 as a starter device, especially at the price point that you can currently get it. I believe I spent around $550 or maybe almost $600 when it came out. So to purchase this device and have the same great experience with more space than mine even came with at $300 to $350, I think is a phenomenal deal if you're trying to just kind of break in and see if you really like what virtual reality has to offer. Now again, if you want to go to the biggest and baddest and play the games the best possible way they can look, I would heavily recommend going into the Quest 3 because I've seen some of the comparisons and they look fantastic. I myself, I'm probably not going to make that leap until I see more of these Quest Studio games make an appearance on these devices, and I'm going to wait until those come out before I make my decision on jumping into that. But as it stands, I think there's still a lot of value in what the Quest 2 offers and how well it functions. And I'd heavily recommend picking it up this holiday season if you want a low-cost try virtual reality and really get into this space. If you like my content, please subscribe, like, comment, and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments. Thanks for watching.